My name's Harry Beal, and I'm 87 years old, but when I was 17, I lived in Glade City, which is about a mile and a half out of Meyersdale, and my dad wanted me to go in the coal mines with him, and I didn't want any part of the coal mines, so I went to Cumberland and enlisted in the Navy. But the hardest part of the training for SEALs is there's a picture there of your feet tied together, your hands tied behind your back, and you get in a 12-foot pool early in the morning, and you're in there about 15 minutes, and you can tell who's positive, who's negative. The negative guys, they just can't stay up. They go down, and they get them out of the pool. And if they just throw them in there with their feet tied and their hands tied behind their back, they'd probably drown. And a person like me who was positive, I could float all day. But when you get your hands tied behind your back and get your feet tied together, it's nothing to try at home. It don't work at home either. Then they'd come throw your face mask in. There they laid on the bottom. They said, if you go down and get your face mask with your mouth, bring it up and let an instructor have it, you could have the weekend off. Oh my God, a whole weekend you go do with, from Friday in the morning until Monday morning. Oh, you could come up to Meyersdale or Glade City and back, you know. And that was a real thrill to, I thought I'd drown, but I got my face mask, and that was, I thought, the hardest part. They have what they call Hell Week, where you get no sleep, and they're running you all over the place. And a lot of people drop out because people are not used to getting up at nighttime, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and running up and down the sand dunes, and then go for a swim. And actually, if you think about it, our furthest swim was only 7 miles. Our longest run was about 18 miles. It was from the place where we lived, our barracks on Little Creek, out to Virginia Beach. My SEAL training was actually becoming underwater demolition teams, because when I say he, President Kennedy wanted a group of people, and he was in the Navy. So instead of going to Green Berets or the Marine Corps, who would have had just as dedicated people, he came to the Navy and wanted people, and I'd already been through skydiving school. It's called Helo school, high altitude, low opening, and worked with the, down at the Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune. We took the bottom out of a helicopter and put a bungee cord ladder in there, and we got to 40 mile an hour, 40 feet in the air, jumping out of that helicopter. You had to hit perfect or you was in all kind of trouble. And when they picked us up, that big helicopter would come down, come in over the water, the same as the loop on the boat. You'd throw your arm through it and grab your wrist and pull all your might, and you'd be there where you just climb up the ladder, same way as the boat. That would throw you in the rubber boat, and then you'd get in the regular boat. When I was in the military, if anybody wants to look at the picture, that's when I was 25 years old, and now I'm 87. There is a difference. And I was a fortunate person because I could stand on one hand. I could do a one-arm pull-up. Very few people in this world can do a one-arm pull-up. And when I went to paratrooper school, the instructor, he says, jump up and do a pull-up. And I said, with one arm or two? And he looked at me and grinned. He says, if you can do a one-arm pull-up, you don't have to do anymore. And I put my hand behind my back, and I did that one-arm pull-up. And it's something that the Lord gave me, because you might try to do a one-arm pull-up the rest of your life and never make one. President Kennedy wanted some idiots to see lightning, hear thunder, bounce a ball on their nose, and have stupid written right there. And I had all that, so I put my hand up, and he says, I'll take him. I became the first SEAL on the East Coast in the United States Navy. And there were no A's. When we started the B's, and I was the first B, there's the book that shows all the B's. There's a lot of B's, but none of them was before me. And I guess I just happened to fall in the right spot, and I became the first SEAL in the Navy. I had a Scouts and Raiders. That's where it all started, in one of the reserves, and he was telling me, you run around in swim trunks and boondockers all day. So I put in for underwater demolition teams at Little Creek. They have two. There's Coronado, California, and Little Creek, Virginia. Well, my order says go to Little Creek, and I went to Little Creek, and it's the hardest thing I did, and I was tough. Had the washboard stomach, all the good stuff, and but I did get through training. You do things that you wouldn't do, like I carried an M60 machine gun, and they used to strap us in the door of a helicopter, and you were actually outside the helicopter, and there was places, if you seen anybody, you were allowed to pull the trigger. And we'd go over the islands out of Da Nang, and if we seen anybody and we didn't get them with a machine gun, they'd send the Army troops out there and they'd get them, because they weren't, this was a area where nobody was allowed to be. And if you seen somebody in that area, you were allowed to shoot, you know. Son Glenn was waiting, and I was up here, and we left him out, and he'd been around about, I don't know, 7 times or so. The Triton, the first one, is, you know, that's the military SEALs. And I was telling her that I have a little airplane on my European occupation ribbon because I was in the Berlin Airlift in 1949. I'd already had a year in the Navy. And we loaded trucks and loaded airplanes, and they'd take it into Germany. In 1949, there were ships up on the beach in say, Naples, great big old ships laying on the beach that they got bombed, and it was still part of World War II, laying all over the place over there. Kids, we'd have what they call a lighter. It was a barge, and we'd dump cans from the meal during the day into that lighter. And there'd be people there, we call them bum boats. They used to come out, and everybody would take what they could get, you know, before somebody tried to run them off with a hose, because people had nothing. This is called a plank owner certificate. The word plank owner means if you're the first people to go on a submarine, or you're the first people that go on a ship, you get one of these. Well, we were the first people to become SEALs, you know. I was going to go to the carnival, not the carnival, the circus. I wanted to work with the Melindas, which was the best high wire people in the world. Even though they had one fall off and killed him, they could ride bicycles on the high wire and put people on their shoulders. And I wrote to them, Sarasota, Florida, and I had 3 years in the Navy and was only 20 years old. And I wanted to go to Sarasota, and they said, Mr. Beal, if you can do what you say you can do, we'll give you billing. Sugar plums danced in my ears, and I was ready. And a daggone war come along, and Harry Truman says, there's a war going on, nobody gets out. I flew into Saigon once a month and told them what I needed in Da Nang, which is about 400 miles north of Saigon. And I was in an airplane one day that had 2 engines, and both engines quit. And my friend, he was called Lump Lump, he had big arms, enormous guy, could comb my hair in his belt buckle. And he already had the door open, and he had his chute on, and he was ready to go. And I'm back there in the back seat with the CIA guy who was in charge of all the CIA people in the north out of Da Nang, FIFO way. And the guy's name was Tucker. And his eyes got about as big as saucers, and I can't get my parachute on, and the guy got the engine started. As you could look right out the front, and there's the jungle coming up. And he forgot, he had a girly book, and he was looking at it, and there was some nice pictures in it, and he forgot to switch tanks. And he finally got the tank switched, and he got that airplane started again, and we get out of there. But when we stopped up in Da Nang, I had a car waiting for me and the other kid, and he was still hollering at this guy, and we never seen him again. They took him off the pilot's list of flying us back and forth to Da Nang.